All right, let's jump right into the 2024 geography paper and tackle those tourism questions. But here's the thing. We're not just going to list off answers. No, we're going to weave it all together into one simple story, the life cycle of tourism, right from the very beginning to the very end.
So this is our game plan, our roadmap. It's what we're calling the tourism life cycle. Think of it this way. It helps us see how all these different exam questions aren't random at all. They actually follow the path of a tourist, from that first little thought of, I need a vacation, all the way to the economic impact they leave behind.
Okay, first stop on our journey, the catalyst. So what's that initial spark? What actually gets the whole tourism engine revving in the first place?
You know, it all really boils down to this one simple question. The exam wants to know the two main reasons, the core motivations that drive this huge, multi-trillion-dollar industry. So why do we even pack our bags?
And the answer is pretty straightforward. You just need two clear categories. First up, you've got leisure and recreation. You know, kicking back on a beach, hitting a theme park, the fun stuff. And second, there's business and work. Think meetings, conferences, that kind of thing. Just remember those two, leisure and business, and you've got the marks.
Okay, so we know why people want to travel, but wanting to go on a holiday is one thing. Actually being able to book that flight, that's the how. And yeah, you probably guessed it, it all comes down to money.
And this right here shows that how perfectly. Now pay close attention to the specific words used in the model answer, because this is exactly how you score those top marks. It's not enough to say income went up. Look at the detail. It increased steadily at first, then continued to increase significantly before hitting a period of slower growth. See that? Nailing that level of detail when describing data is absolutely key.
All right, let's move on to the next part of our story. So now we've got more people with more money to travel. And that's not just changing how often we go away, it's changing where we go. We're really starting to push the boundaries, exploring new frontiers.
And this is where things get really interesting. There's this huge trend of tourists heading to the world's last untouched places. So the exam poses a great question. Why are these super remote, really fragile spots like Antarctica suddenly so popular?
Well, it boils down to a mix of three big things. First, people are just looking for unique experiences, right? They want an adventure away from the usual tourist traps. Second, we've got better technology. Think of those specialized cruise ships that can actually get to these remote places safely. And third, there's a growing interest in nature tourism. People really want to see these incredible, pristine landscapes for themselves.
Now this next bit is where a good answer becomes a great one. Your first thought might be, tourists in a place like Antarctica? That has to be bad news. And that's common sense. But to really impress the examiners and get those top marks, you need to flip that idea on its head and explain the surprising positive side of it all.
And here's how it works. This shows that when you manage tourism the right way, it can actually be a force for good. The secret ingredients are keeping tour groups small and controlled, taking the money from permits and plowing it right back into conservation efforts, and having super strict environmental rules that everyone has to follow. When you do that, tourists basically become funders of preservation. It's a brilliant system.
Okay, we've reached the final stage of our life cycle, the ripple effect. So after the journey is over and the tourists head home, what do they leave behind? They leave an economic footprint, and it creates these ripples through the local community. So what do those ripples actually look like?
Well, when it comes to the economy, tourism is a classic double-edged sword. On one hand, it can be this incredible engine for growth, building up the local area. But on the other hand, it can act like a drain, pulling money and resources right out. And for a really solid high-level answer, you have to show you understand both sides of that coin. So let's look at the good side first, the positives. The question specifically mentions economic sustainability, and this model answer lays out perfectly how tourism can fuel that. So, how exactly does it work as an engine for good? The big idea to remember here is the chain reaction it sets off. First, tourism creates jobs. Think hotels, tour guides, restaurants. Then, those workers and the tourists themselves spend their money in the area, which helps local shops and businesses thrive. And finally, all of that business activity generates tax money, which the government can turn around and use to build better roads, schools, and hospitals for everybody. It's a cycle. But of course, we have to look at the other side of that sword. This is the crucial part for a balanced answer. It seems weird, right? How can an industry that brings in mountains of cash actually end up draining an economy? Let's break it down. There are two really important terms you have to know here:
economic leakage and over-reliance. So, economic leakage, that's when the profits don't actually stay in the local community, they leak out. Imagine this. You stay at a big international hotel chain. A huge chunk of what you pay might go straight back to their headquarters overseas, instead of staying locally. Then there's over-reliance. This is when a place depends so much on tourism that if something goes wrong, like a pandemic or political trouble, and the tourists stop coming, well, their whole economy is in serious trouble. It's incredibly risky.
So there you have it. We've followed the entire life cycle, from a simple desire to travel all the way to its massive global impact. And that brings us to one last question. This one isn't for the exam, it's for all of us. Now that we know our travels can be a powerful engine or a drain, that they can help preserve a place or contribute to its destruction, what's our responsibility? How does that change the way we choose to see the world?